Good evening, Californios. It's Saturday night, July 31st, 2021, and this is Red Star Report. Tonight, we'd like to introduce California Origins, a new segment of interviews based on listening and dialogue with California's diverse indigenous peoples and communities. These segments will be presented by Red Star staff and contributors, and indigenous tribal representatives are welcome to contact us to host a segment. Red Star Report promises to present these segments with editing and formatting changes used mostly for a time constraint of 30 minutes each. And the mic is open. That allows each individual each indigenous tribe the opportunity to say what they wish to say. For tonight, we begin with the first of a two-part segment with the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians, the Kizh Nation. And we'll get to that right after this. With COVID-19 cases rising in California, public officials are taking steps aimed at slowing the spread. Those who work for the state of California or in public or private healthcare settings will soon be required to show proof of vaccination against COVID-19. If they aren't vaccinated or decline to show such documentation, they will be tested for infection regularly. The new guidance comes as cities, schools, and businesses are taking similar steps to slow the latest spike in coronavirus transmission in the nation's state of California, mostly among the unvaccinated, requiring California government health workers to show proof of vaccination or be tested regularly. Here's a breakdown of the latest rules. California state workers will have to show their vaccine status. Those who are unvaccinated or decline to show proof will be tested for coronavirus infection at least once a week. Public and private healthcare workers will be subject to similar requirements. Those who are unvaccinated will also be subject to testing at least once a week and will be required to wear masks. This requirement also applies to places like senior residential facilities, homeless shelters, and jails. The new policy goes into effect August 2nd, with testing phased in over the next 2 weeks. The requirements for healthcare and congregate settings will become effective August 9th. Healthcare facilities have until August 23rd to come into compliance. The good news is, for those worried about a return to lockdowns and closures, California simply isn't there yet. The current spike is a rise of about 7,500 new cases per day as opposed to the 30 to 40,000 we saw a year ago. And California leads the USA with about 64% of all Californians getting vaccinated, which scientists say has slowed the spread in California to some degree. The bad news is 64,000 Californians are listed as COVID-19 related deaths already. 42 Californians died yesterday, which shows a rising rather than falling percentage attributed to the Delta variant and a flattening of vaccination rates, due in no small way to anti-vaxxers. A term I honestly think gives these little whiny crybabies a level of political legit they really don't deserve. Think it through. The whole anti-vax thing was wrong. The shots have been around for over half a year now, and 25 million Californians have been vaccinated. People got their shots. They feel better, and the vaccinated are much less likely to need hospitalization if they contract the new variant. So, all the anti-vaxxers have done by refusing the shots has proved that being vaccinated is a good thing. It's not California's fault that your apocalyptic fantasy can't trust the government vaccine right-wing bullshit didn't fucking happen. I know. They're very disappointed in such an end-of-the-world scenario fizzle. But these pathetic losers are still keeping California below the CDC recommended 70% vaccination rate required to achieve any level of herd immunity, which is the very thing these anti-vaxxers are relying on. So they personally don't have to get a big, scary shot. The stupidity is mind-blowing. Right now, California is seeing 14 new cases per 100,000 citizens per day. Simply put, if California were still using the guidelines from January, anything over 7 cases per 100,000, and the state would be back to purple level restrictions, which shuts down schools, churches, bars, and public events. California's at twice that rate and rising. But plans right now, likely due to the possibility of recall election fallout, are not to return to that system. Stay tuned.
Okay, welcome to another Red Star special report. This is a special interview with two extremely important Californians. One of them with bloodlines in Southern California dating 12,000 years back, and that's provable, folks. That is definitely provable. He's got the data to back it up, unlike a lot of people, which is going to be the topic of this interview. I'm sitting here with Andy Salas and James Aguirre. Andy is with the Kizh Nation. We are in his office here in Covina, his beautiful office, the Kizh Nation Resource and Management Center, I believe.
That's correct.
And it's a nice building, Andy. You got a nice office here, my man.
Thank you. We hook it up all ourselves.
How long has this been your location, and why this location?
Well, the thing is, I just live not too far from here, down the street, and it's close, and you know, the rents were good because we pay. This is all on our own. No, we don't get nothing from government or anything like that. This is something that we established, our foundation, our people.
I was thinking this was sacred land a long time ago, and so you.
Yeah. Well, this is part of that sacred land. Covina was originally Wininga, so we're still in our ancestral land area.
So Andy has it's a pretty good trick. It's not a trick. It's actually, he has a data set in his mind that's unbelievable. He will tell you the history of Southern California like you have never heard before. He's also got the uncanny ability to tell a person like almost where they're from just from their name. He can kind of guide where their ancestry is from a little bit. It's quite a good trick, and he's learned to do that because a lot of people are claiming native, and that is the point of this discussion here, and claiming to be native and not really native, and that's why James is here. James is thought he was Kizh for a while, am I right? And then realized
from my mom's side, we knew we were not Kizh. That's always been so, and I have a lot of proof and evidence of people that are using our history, claiming to be Kizh, but they're not even Kizh. They claim that they're Tongva.
Right.
Which is a fake faction that's claiming to be from the Gabrielino area.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. Okay. But you're not Kizh, right?
No.
But Andy is definitely Kizh, and that's cool that you're still backing him up and supporting him, and that's what really counts, man. That's why I'm here, and that's why a lot of other people should be backing
it's important
too.
Yeah. Right. And I want to. You just mentioned individuals that are claiming native. Yeah. There's individuals that are claiming our identity, our people, native people, and that's what we're trying to clarify.
Right,
here.
Native people. They are native, maybe, but they're not of your descendants. So Andy, let's just dive into it real quick. Well, real quick, I see these big fat books. If you want to be native, man, this is what it takes. To back you up. Look at this, how thick this is, guys. This is 300 years of history, of your history, correct?
That's of our history. Direct
proving that you are actually indigenous from this area. This is what it takes. You can't just say it and then expect everyone to believe it. It's got to be backed with data, which is what Andy has.
Open it up. You could see there's baptisms, there's birth, actual documents.
There's documents in there dating back to 1740s,
Up to
1780s.
1785, 1780s. Baptisms, birth, it's all there. It's all fact.
So that's what it takes. In fact, let's talk about this a little bit here. Well, can you just give us briefly your family's ancestry, your history here in Southern California?
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned, we're the foundation of California history here in the Los Angeles Basin. We have a rich culture, a rich history. It's not, you don't hear about it too much in our schools. You know, we're the teachers that try to teach that part of the history that was not given in our schools today. But through my father, we have a rich history. And when I say that, we have a rich history through the native, through the Spanish, through the Mexican, and through the American. Through our native side, my father, we descend from a prominent, known individual, tribe leader of the Kizh, and later called Gabrielino, but his name was Nicholas Joseph. He was one who instigated or put together, it's documented, about 4 revolts here in the San Gabriel Mission against the Spanish for the way our people were being treated. He was also an alcalde later when the Spanish arrived here. They made him an alcalde. He was a prominent man, knew a lot of the communities here in the basin. That's why he was an alcalde. He was actually one of the Indians that were, he baptized also through the Catholic Church some of these natives that even came from Baja. It's documented. So he became part of the church, not because he wanted to, because they had to.
Right.
So
Assimilating.
we descend from the community or the village of Sibba, Savagna. It's not over where the San Gabriel Mission is today. A lot of historians, anthropologists, they direct that village being over where the San Gabriel Mission is today because they hear the word San Gabriel. But San Gabriel, long before when the Spanish arrived here, was this whole area of the San Gabriel Valley. El Monte, before it became El Monte, was known as San Gabriel. The Spanish called it La Misión Vieja. That is the village site where we descend from. It's in Whittier Narrows.
Oh.
That community today is called Savannah. It originates from the village of Savagna, where we descend from. We're the Indians that named Cucamonga, Topanga, Coanga, Conoga, Pacoigna, Azuzagna, and today we're here in Wininga, in Covina. These are the villages or the names that still exist. You hear them today. We're the descendants, the grandchildren of those communities. But through my father, we had a rich history, like I said, and in 1785, with the help of a prominent woman, her name was Torperina, they were both able to lead a revolt here in the San Gabriel Mission in 1785. But before the revolt could even happen, they were caught and incarcerated, where my grandfather or great-grandfather was sent to San Francisco Presidio, did 17 years there, and Torperina was sent over to San Juan Bautista in Carmel, where she later was forced to marry a Spanish soldier, had children, and died in Carmel and buried out there. But a lot of my family or descendants, later my grandfather he was brought back into the San Gabriel area, where he's buried there at the San Gabriel Mission, Nicholas Jose, where the cemetery is today. But a lot of our family of that line lived right across the street from the mission, where there's a park there called Smith Park. There was a little ranch house there. That house and that property was granted to our family long ago. But we also became part of the Spanish that arrived here during those times. 1769, we became mestizos when they were establishing the missions here. My great-great-grandfathers are the Perez Nietos family, or Rancho Los Nietos, here between Santa Fe Springs and Whittier, California. There's an area called Los Nietos. They named that area. They were the Spanish soldiers, prominent brothers, that received the largest land grant here of Alta California, Upper California. They were given the land grant of 360,000 acres. They were the owners of Huntington Beach, Bolsa Chica, Seal Beach, Long Beach, Los Alamitos, Gardena, Los Coyotes, Bellflower, Santa Fe Springs, Whittier, Downey, Pico, all that area, all the way up to La Misión Vieja, where we descend from. They're buried, actually, or my grandfather, which his name was Juan Crispin Perez Nietos, of Rancho Los Nietos. He was brother of Manuel Perez Nietos. But my grandfather, or great-great-grandfather, is buried in the Mission as you walk into where the originally was the front doors off of Mission Road. You walk in there, there's Padres buried there. He's buried in the Mission there with those Padres because they were Mayadromos, managers of the Mission. The Mexicans arrived here in 1781. The government arrived here. Those 44 families, one of those families became my family, the Rodriguez and Noriega. For it was their granddaughter who married Juan Crispin Perez Nietos, or Rancho Los Nietos, who had a grandson. He had a son, and then he had a grandson. And that man married my Indian grandmother, which was the granddaughter of Nicholas Jose.
Oh, wow.
See, so that's how the mix came in through those founding families that founded Los Angeles and named Los Angeles is my father's direct line.
Wow.
We're also part of the Americans that came later in 1848, 1850. My line, my connection, my family are the Callahans, the Wilsons, and the Pattons. My family is Benjamin D. Wilson of Mount Wilson and Ramona Yorba of Yorba Linda, for they were the grandparents of General George Patton and Ann Patton. There's the picture there of Ann Patton sitting. My cousin Sylvia is sitting right there in that little picture. She's a baby, and that's my Aunt Feliciana. Her father was Francisco Perez, who was the son of the Perez Nietos guy and an Indian woman here, our great-grandmother. But he was the coach driver for Benjamin D. Wilson of Mount Wilson. This picture is also at the Huntington Library, because the Huntington Library is the property of where the Wilsons and the Pattons lived. All our family became, through the Spanish, Mexican, and American, became part of those families because we had to. And we intermarried and lived there. The why we had to be is because we became their servants. Their house slaves, their plantation workers. Yeah. We're rancheros.
So, wow, man. Who is not just blown away right there? I mean, he just gave the whole lowdown of SoCal. How his family, your family, is so intertwined with it. It's just amazing. And when you say Patton, you're talking about General Patton, right?
General Patton.
That's his
my dad lived with him. My dad, Ernie, that passed away just a few months ago, he was our chief. He was our leader.
Let's talk about your father, Ernie. I think he's kind of an important guy. You mentioned him a little bit. What did Ernie do exactly for the Kizh, and what did he do for Southern California before? Because I know he was very important. A lot of people respect him. I know everybody in the activist community knows who he is exactly. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your
my father was a great leader. He was a spokesperson for the tribe, in the 90s. He was, people didn't really want to call him a leader, other people, but he was the one that held the fort together. Yeah. A lot of the families, a lot of the communities, and even the old timers, they tell you, your dad is the one that opened up those doors for us, that moved forward. My dad didn't put up with any, in his times, I would say he was an activist. He was for all the right reasons, for his people, for his culture, his history of who he was. It was, there's been, look at our history. We became citizens as Native Americans in 1924. During those times, it was hush, shut up. Nobody talk about who you were or who we were. Yeah. Nobody wanted to say anything. But during my father's times, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, that wasn't going to work. We weren't going to stay quiet no more. He was the one that went out and opened his mouth to tell the history. It was always, he always mentioned that. No more are we going to sit and take this anymore. We're going to move forward. We need to be known and recognized for who we are. He was a good leader in our community, and he was our chief. He was our leader of our chief.
So in saying that, and what he did, it brings me to my next point here, which is speaking up. Well, it seems that the government realized that, oh, here we have some natives, some indigenous that are speaking up. Yeah, whatever they say is true, and they just seem like they granted status to as a native to just anyone who said that's who they were.
That's
and
true.
This started in what I think
1928. Right.
Tell us about the 1928.
But I want to mention something
Sure.
that I forgot to mention. So for the record, so everybody understands, and I have all the documents there. My father was the first who established the first 501c3 nonprofit for the Gabrielino Tribal Council of San Gabriel.
Okay.
He was the incorporator. He was also part and involved, and we'll get to that, how he was ditched, and I have those records, who established the state recognition for our tribe.
Sure.
My father was, with Noli, Irene Verdugo. These were individuals, family members of our tribe, who help establish the state recognition. So when you hear that the Tongva or these groups got recognition,
we'll get to them. We'll get to them in a bit.
Not
Let's talk about how the government started recognizing just anybody who would come up and say, yeah, I'm part of this tribe, and they would write their names down on the rolls in 1928, and those rolls gave them property rights. Or am I right?
Well, the rolls were based on the acts of the government that came in 1848, 1850. They know, and as you know as well as I do, that a lot of our lands were taken over by the American government. You know, a lot of, mostly all the lands that they own is taken, it's behind genocide. And, you know, what they took, what they conquered or conquested upon, they were able to take over. That happened to us. And in 1848 and 1850, they arrived here and took this land. They were fighting a government here that the Americans didn't have an idea that these Mexican government that were here, that arrived here in 1781, they weren't the original people.
Right.
There was people before them here, and before them were the Spanish. So even those Spanish were not the original people of these lands. They were natives that were here,
right,
that descend from here. We're the DNA of these lands here for thousands of years. So those are the true individuals they should have been in 1850, 1848, doing any deals or treaties with. But because they came in, the Americans took this land fraudulently. In 1928, they came to the government and said, hey, we got a problem here. There ain't no record or no pink slip that we actually own this land. So what do? Well, we're going to do an Indian roll, establish an Indian roll, go to these 21 mission areas, and get people that we know in 1928, or people that we knock on their door, and we ask them if they have, or if their family's been here since 1848, 1850, when we arrived here. And with that, we'll have them sign, give them a documentation, give them a roll number, give them a roll number as a receipt. See this roll number? All it is a receipt that individual who put herself or himself on the list was proof, and here's your $150. Thank you for your time. Not telling them that they were actually selling over the land to this government.
Oh my God,
See?
man.
That's what all this is about. The Indian land claims. On how they again took advantage of all the wrong people. Because I mean, some of them, don't get me wrong, there is natives that are on these rolls, but not all of them are natives. If you read each of these rolls, there's no genealogy conducted here.
No.
It's hearsay.
There's nothing.
It's what?
Not
Yeah.
this.
It's
Yeah.
not this. It's the questions that are asked here. Are you Indian? Who's your ancestor? Where are they from? I don't know. It seemed to be. She had the appearance of being an Indian. That's what they say right there. Okay, that's good enough. Who could sign for you? Well, I got a cousin. His family was here since bring him down. Let him just sign and verify as a witness. So they sign. Here's $150 for you. Here's $150 for you. Thank you. Then that's why these roles for the process. If you're moving forward for federal acknowledgement, the federal government will not use your BIA certificate for federal acknowledgement. They won't use it because they know that it's not based off genealogical records. It's based off of hearsay. See, it was another form of, they tricked us. They tricked us. They tricked a lot of people that weren't who they were. So now they got individuals that, because they see their grandmother on one of those papers, and it's BIA and it's federal paper. Wow, she's an Indian because I got a BIA number. No, BIA will get your BIA paper and rip it and toss it. They'll verify to say, well, this person was, and their genealogy proves that individual. But they tell you, please do not use that documentation for verification for descendancy. They tell you that in the Office of Federal Acknowledgement. Which is why with the tribe, you claim your tribe, there's a process you got to go through with everybody within your tribe. You can come and tell me that, and we know your family, and we understand they've been here, but for this process, to qualify as membership of a tribe, you have to be descendant of the original villages or communities of your people.
And this is done with an official genealogist and a
professional. Yeah, these ain't people that I just pick.
Yeah. This is data.
This is data.
Random.
Right. And everything is factual. You can verify that with other genealogists like we have, and other genealogists have told us that's right on, man. That's right on.
So,
and by signing these judgment rolls, it also gives legitimacy to the federal government. And it makes it look like they purchased the land legally, which we know they stole it.
Right.
But they use these applications to make it look like it was legal.
Yeah.
So James, just real quick, I think that's where you come in, right? I mean, you thought you were Kizh because your grandmother was on these rolls, and
yes, but not as a Garbaleno. She was on the judgment rolls.
Okay, I see.
As a Diweno.
Okay.
Which is San Diego area.
Right.
She was born in Baja California. And what happened is they came into the tribe,
individuals,
Andy's tribe with his father.
Not the tribe, the Springs Foundation.
Yeah, this is back in the 80s. And what they did, they started coming to the meetings. You can tell that story how they came to the meetings.
So in 1990, around that time, our tribe here in San Gabriel was approached by a good man. His name was John Shaughnessy. I've been trying to look for him. I think he passed away already. But he was a good man. He belonged to the West LA community organization. And he was involved in a lot of the community there in Santa Monica with a lot of these individuals that we're going to talk about. And his concern was they were trying to destroy a sacred spring, a known site over at the Uni High School there off of Barrington. And he needed the help of tribal people to help him protect that site. Where did he come? Came to San Gabriel. He met my father. And the elders. And my dad is all about protecting and preserving his culture, history, ancestors, everything that has to do with his history. And he said, let's go take a look. Went over there. He said, this is the spring. It was bubbling. Still bubbles beautifully. My dad says, I want to help you because I want to help you help us preserve that site. Good. My dad got involved. Fought. And finally we started hearing good news. We just got our state recognition about 94. It took a few years to my dad used to go teach and have walks there. I have pictures I can provide for you, and you can see him teaching the history, the culture, talking about the springs, about when Father Sarah came and visited that site and camped out there with the local tribal people of Kuravungna of that site and settled there for a few days, utilizing the water for their horses and for themselves until they went on to their journey onto the next area that they were going to plunder. So my dad got involved in really highly there, and finally they came to him and said, Ernie, we're going to be able to, the state's going to recognize this site as a sacred site, the county, the city of Santa Monica, and the school district. And we're going to present you and your tribe this key to this land for $1 a year for fighting to protect and preserve for your people. So you could come and have events, have a cultural center there. That was something that my father, along with elders, have always wanted. We don't have a cultural center here.
Yeah.
Where do you learn the history? Right here. This is our cultural center. This is where we bring people that are interested in our history to give our history here. And it's all fact here. These are not something that I read about. You see these books here, I only utilize them as a resource backup on the oral history that I share with all of you.
So how does that tie in with finding out that
You talk about the fraudulent people.
Yeah.
So during that time, my dad fought, and then all of a sudden, with the West community or West LA community, they had individuals that were working alongside with that community and what have you, and they started coming out of the woodworks when they started hearing that the tribe got a spot over there, piece of land over there. You know, just like you're reading today with all these land that they're trying to give everybody and what have you, or not give, but individuals are fighting for to get back. So it happened there. And when they found that out, they said, this is where we can move in. We'll be nice to these good Indian people and learn what they know about this particular area and take from them. So what they tried to do, or what they did, was we were having meetings there, showing functions there, bringing, teaching, what have you. They were even starting, a lot of the community and a lot of these individuals were coming to our meetings in San Gabriel. But what they wanted is to establish, not the tribe, these individuals were pushing to establish a tribal council there at the springs. Not mainly of natives, but individuals that they wanted to make it look Indianish, native. So they wanted to establish.
This is in the 90s?
This is in the 90s, and I got the pictures there, so I could show you. And
okay, with that, I almost want to ask for names, but that's okay. I don't.
No, you'll name them.
Angie Dormy, Robert Dormy,
Dormies,
Cindy Alvitri. Those people.
So now we're getting into
those individuals.
Okay,
got it. So they came out of the woodworks, and Cindy Alvitri came over to the Springs, of course, because my cousins, Beatrice Alva and my Ernestine, my cousin Ernestine, and elders that are long gone. These are people that were born in 1912, 1913. They're gone now, but they were over in Long Beach preserving and fighting for the remains that were found there, that everybody talks about now. All of a sudden, everybody's Pavungna and Safe Pavungna. Well, these were the individuals, my family, my tribal members, or our elders, that preserved that site over there when those remains were found. And Cindy was involved there because Cindy was part of the academia there. She was learning to be a school teacher there. So the
Dormies, the Alvitre, they came in and started claiming, and that's what I just really quickly, James, I want to know talk about how you realized that you weren't who you thought you were after growing up thinking one thing that of your identity, and then really.
Well, we always knew who we were, but what happened was these two individuals, Robert Dormy and Angie Dormy, who were coming to the meetings, learning the history, never claimed they were native. They would just come to the meetings and they were learning, getting the history, right? And what they do, they're professional con artists. So they started learning the families,
right,
different families, And I don't know the actual reason they latched on to our family, but I think part of the reason was we have a big history. And so my name is James Aguirre. My mother's maiden name is Henninger. And we descend from the Henninger Flats. His name was William Henninger. So he got the homestead up there. It's named after him.
Mount Wilson.
Yeah.
Mount Wilson, yeah.
He was married to a full-blooded Indian named Teresa. Last name Serrano, right? She was born in Baja California. Not San Gabriel area.
Yeah.
She was not Garbeleno. Okay. Robert and Angie Doramy would come to my grandmother's house where my mom was born. And they would, talking to my grandmother, not knowing who they were, they were asking for information about our family. They told her
wow.
that they were related to us. They said they descend from the sister of our great-great-grandmother, Louisa Henninger. They claim they come from Susanna, right? Okay. The full-blooded Indian, Teresa, is from Baja California, correct? That's the bloodline. You can't change that.
Right.
So if we descend from Teresa, then they also descend from her.
Yeah.
So how can they be Garbeleno and us Di Bueno? It's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous.
So I actually brought a document.
Yeah.
This is has Robert's name on it, Robert Doramy, his phone number, his signature.
Oh, great.
These are the pictures that he borrowed from my grandmother.
That was our first of the new segment, California Origins. If you like and want to see more of these, please comment down below. Give us a like and share. Thank you. It's time for Talking Points. With tonight's California Origins, the show is running a little long, so we're going to have just one talking point tonight. And it's a short one. Something to keep in mind. If you hadn't noticed, or if you don't care, and a lot of people apparently don't, the USA has sent a little over 600 athletes to compete in the Summer Olympics in Tokyo. And what the fuck does that have to do with talking points to California independence, right? Well, here's a little point of interest that accidentally illustrates how California is already a nation in all but name. You see, of those U.S. Olympians, 126 athletes are Californians, more than twice as many as any other state. And Californians have won 1 out of every 5 Olympic medals over the last 30 years. So, talking point. Whether you support the Olympics or don't care about the Olympics or detest the Olympics, as of right now, California unofficially sends about as many athletes to the Games as Argentina, Belgium, Egypt, India, Ireland, Mexico, Romania, Sweden, Switzerland, Turkey, or the Ukraine. And nobody disputes that these places are not or do not deserve to be considered sovereign independent countries. Do they? Mexico, Sweden, what are these made-up countries of which I speak? Okay, I admit that in the grand plan of California independence, this is probably unimportant. But it never hurts the discussion with those that don't support California independence to have these little facts that people can't argue with. California already sends more athletes to the Olympic Games than over half the other countries on Earth. Another example of how California is already acting as a nation in all but name. That's it for tonight. That's it for Talking Points. Hope you like the new segment. As always, like and share. And subscribe to our YouTube channel because it's all about the algorithms. Have a good night. Have a great weekend. We are Red Star Report.